So maybe what we can do is we can begin, and then I'll work on off.
Yes, I think so. Yes, please. Thank you.
Lovely. Well, welcome everyone, all of our attendees and our panelists to today's event. It's the next in our series of workshops and webinars in medical education. On behalf of Imamia Medics International and Sadiq International Virtual University, I'd like to welcome you all to New Educational Technologies for Medical Education, the second of our webinars on this topic. To start us off, I'd like to introduce our moderator for today, Mr. Hasnan Zafar Baloch. If you could take it away.
Okay, thanks Shifa. Hope everybody can hear me right?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. I would like to welcome everybody and thanks to all our speakers and panelists giving us a time, and it's a very important and critical topic, new educational technologies for medical education. So after COVID, all these tools, technologies are now very important, and how we could leverage on these tools. And if we could find appropriate and fit for tasks, tool and technology, then the learning experience would be great. So we would start with our first talk, and just to announce everybody, like you could turn off your cameras and only the speakers will be able to on the camera and can talk. And you could use chat whenever you have any question. So if time permits, after every talk, maybe 1 or 2 questions I will pick up. And if we could not answer during that time, then at the end of the session, we will have a Q&A sessions. So feel free to use chat. And let me introduce and invite Dr. Dinad, right? And please introduce yourself first and start your talk. The floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. My name is Afsaneh Dehnad. I'm an associate professor at School of Health Management and Information Sciences at Iran University of Medical Sciences. First and foremost, I would like to thank Professor Shabih Zaidi and the scientific committee for providing us this opportunity to share our ideas and experiences. I'm also thankful to Dr. Bigdeli for adding me to this academic community. E-learning and new generation of universities, a topic I'm going to discuss here. In these slides, I will compare traditional universities with new generation of universities, and I will talk about the role of e-learning in new generation of universities. And then I will talk about the outcomes of e-learning in new generation of universities. If you look at the table, you have 2 columns, first generation and second generation universities, which are actually traditional universities. In the first generation university, the objective was education, merely education. And their role was to protect the truth, which was actually the doctrine of the church. And they tried to train individuals to become professionals. And they had schools of theology, law, medicine, and art. And the dominant language was actually Latin. In the second generation university, the objective changed to education plus research. And their role was to discover the truth through the experiments. And their approach was monodisciplinary science and research. And they tried to train individuals to become professionals plus scientists. And we had faculties like Faculty of Medicine, Biology, and Public Health. And there was a focus on national languages at that time. In this table, you have new generation of universities. And as you see, we have radical changes. The objective of new generation of universities changed to education plus research plus skills of how to do things. And in the fourth generation university, we have also education, research, utilization of knowledge, and proactive economic development. The role of third generation universities to create value. In the fourth generation university, the universities are enablers and motivators for local economy to create value and even added value. Their approach in the third generation university is interdisciplinary, and in the fourth generation universities, we have interdisciplinary plus transdisciplinary approach. The outcomes of the third generation university is to train individuals to become professionals plus scientists plus entrepreneurs. In the fourth generation universities, in addition to professionals, scientists, and entrepreneurs, we have the individuals who could maintain competitive local economy. In the third generation universities, we have university institutes, while in the fourth generation universities, we observe university institutes plus an increasing number of online centers. In the third generation university, the dominant language was English, while in the fourth generation university, English is still dominant with a focus on local languages, or let's say with a respect to local languages. What is behind these changes? The first factor is new economic activities. We have globalization with a focus on local economy and competitive regional economy. There is also a new approach to research, interdisciplinary, even transdisciplinary. Both of them are costly. The universities cannot afford this high cost, so they have to rely on the market. And if they rely on the market, they have to be responsive to the market and society. From the aspect of social needs, universities are influenced by quick training of individuals. Society needs quick training of individuals. Individuals who could create values. Individuals with skills and knowledge. The universities, new generation of universities, are also influenced by e-patients, patient-centered approach, and electronic health records. So they should train individuals to be professionals, scientists, entrepreneurs with a focus on employability and skills development of how to do things. In addition, we have contribution of computer scientists with emerging technologies. So universities should adopt new technologies. We have also new generation of learners. Learners are not consumer of teacher information anymore. They are active processors of information. They like to dialogue with self and others. They like to learn by creating. Our learners are computer savvy. They create e-content much better than their teachers. They like personalized learnings, and they like to be involved in social learning. They're also interested in lifelong learning. So universities should train individuals to become autonomous learners. So we have universities on one side and a real outside world on the other side. We need something to bridge the gap, and e-learning bridges the gap between the real world and universities. Then what happens? We see that in the new generation of universities, traditional courses are replaced by online context-based modules. That's modular courses or short-term courses. We also see that large and complete skill areas of learning are replaced by macro learning to satisfy the immediate needs of the market. We have traditional classroom learning replaced by anywhere, anytime learning, which is flexible, or we could say mobile learning. In addition, lecture-based learning is replaced by social, personalized, active learning. And we see network learning also. We also see that experts' materials are replaced by user-generated content. In traditional universities, or even in third-generation universities, we had reading-based learning. But in new generation of universities, we have video learning. We have learning by working with real objects replaced by learning by AR, VR, MR, and as you will see in a few minutes, XR. We see that formal classes are replaced by game-based learning. So these radical changes are observed in a new generation of universities, and they have to deploy artificial intelligence powered learning system. They should maintain learning through open data and big data, which connects learners to the real world and leads to transparency and evidence-based activities. Universities offer courses on data ethics. Why? Because if they're using open data or big data, they should be able to interpret the data, share the data, and use the data correctly. New generation of universities should offer game-based learning. For example, we see e-sports courses played individually or in teams involving activities trained by sensors. We should offer courses in which learning from animation by explaining through sounds and well-designed content is taking place. They should work on multidisciplinary experiences, that is using touch and smell for online lab. They should also try offline network learning in some area in which there is no access to internet. They should offer online lab courses for conducting simulated science experiments through an interactive environment. And there should be also virtual libraries connecting data sources together from different universities. What will be the outcomes? AR, VR, MR, and now XR on the rise. Artificial intelligence becoming a normal thing. Context-based and short modular courses are extensively offered. Content is going visual, learning is going mobile, and traditional conferences are replaced by webinars. But how could we consolidate this bridge? This bridge could be consolidated by democratization of technology, information, and education, which means easy access of individuals to technological tools, data sources. Educational experts should be available for everybody. It means easy access of learners to personalized assessment and feedback, and availability of information to all for free or at a low cost. These are the references for further reading. Thank you for listening to me, and I'm here to answer your question. I would be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Yeah, Doctor, can I just pick one question and you should be able to
Sure.
answer that? Can we say all new approaches are superior? Any new approach more resource demanding?
More,
Is this clear?
your question, if I understand correctly, is that there should be more resources available. Is this what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, they say like if, can we say all new approaches are superior and any new approach needs more resources or resource demanding? So what do you think?
If I understand correctly, yes, Yes, we demand more resources. Yes,
Sure.
they are.
Okay.
And depends on what you mean by resources. Do you mean human resources, data resources, physical resources, technological resources? What do you mean by the word resources?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's what is written there. I think hopefully you have answered the question. So there are a few more questions we will answer in a later session. Thanks, Dr. Danad. So
Sure.
may I invite the next speaker, and that is myself. So I will share my slide. Okay. May I know you, anyone confirm, or Shifa, can you confirm please what you're seeing now?
I see some bread and
Oh, that's great. Okay. Yeah. So if you could use chat, and what Shifa identify correctly is a bread. What else you could see there? Let me pull the chat to different monitor. Yeah, somebody saw butter. Great. Jam. It seems like, oh yeah, I'm more interested in spoon, knife. Yes. Coffee. Wow. Okay. Coffee cup is there. Yeah. Plate. So if you look at, great, great. That's my focus is more on the tools. Normally in a rush, we use knife for everything, right? We'll cut the bread with knife, we will spread the jam, we will, slice the butter. But look at appropriately how there are almost 3-4 different tools we use. So that's what we should do when we are designing content. Not each and every tool is for everything, okay? For example, if you notice that PowerPoint was meant for sales and marketing or business, but mostly in education sector is the topmost tool, right? Even myself also, I'm using PowerPoint, right? Just give me a second. I think it's my battery, not my laptop battery. Let me just plug in. Okay, so I will be focusing more on how we use these different tools for content design, right? And how many of you could recognize any logo from this slide? Just use chat. Zoom, wow, Zoom, yes. After COVID, Zoom is jump from, I don't know, 100th position to second position. Kahoot, yes, very good. That's great. The clown kind of logo is actually Kahoot. Okay, Kahoot here, sorry. And clown one is Padlet. Adobe, yes, barcode. It's QR code. Yeah, barcode, advanced version of barcode. That's great. So there are different tools, but we just need to make sure that we pick certain tools. We should know their strengths and their limitations. And then we need to blend with tool to make sure that our learning experience design, the students will, have that great enhanced learning experiences. I'm focusing more on tool, but I just have to disclaim that tool and technology is the last thing you should think of. Pedagogy, your methodology, your learner needs should come first. So when you are starting designing learning and content design, you should start with learner needs first. What kind of resources? When I'm talking about resources, like I think where like infrastructure, bandwidth, computer hardware resources, And after that, you focus on pedagogy. What are our outcomes to or objectives to achieve? The last thing will be the tool. Okay, that's, I would like to repeat, that tool is the last thing. Tool is just mean to the end, it's not the end. Okay, that's great. So let's move on. So I will be picking up some tools and sharing with you uh, the strengths and the benefit of these tools and how we could use them for content creation, right? Yeah, so I just use Bloom's taxonomy, the pyramid, and pick up this image from the internet, and they list down different tools. So to me is how you're going to use your tool. I can use PowerPoint for all levels, right? Because nowadays PowerPoint have these features which I can actually apply on all levels, right? To make simplify version, I have created my own Bloom's taxonomy and tool appropriation. So maybe you could recognize some of the logos here. Like at creating level, we could use Prezi, PowerPoint, YouTube. Okay, Beyond is for animation, animated videos. Then evaluating, we could use Forum, Kahoot, Forms. Microsoft Forms. So creative, Poll Everywhere. So I think later in my slide, I'm using Poll Everywhere also to analyze. Then in applying, we could use even this Keynote, YouTube. Um, this A is old logo of articulate engagement or articulate quiz maker. So those who are using this e-learning authoring tools, Articulate and Captivate is the topmost tool for e-learning content design, right? And then in remembering, we could use even word cloud, okay? And few other tools which could assist this, right? So can you just list down what you need to do? Kindly go to pollev.com/IMU poll and list down your top 3 tools for teaching and learning. You need to just go open a browser or use your smartphone. Okay, if you cannot use this poll, you can use chat also. Laptop is a tool, okay, that's good. But I'm focusing more on software side, could be PowerPoint, could be one of them, right? But it's okay, you can write whatever your favorite tool. If I need maybe help from you, can you type in and see you're able to key in your tool?
Sure.
You need to key in pollev.com/IMU poll. Yes, Moodle, thanks. Yeah, I'm getting response now. Adobe Connect. Adobe Connect is same like Zoom or web conferencing. Yeah, Google Classroom, great. PowerPoint, YouTube, good. LMS, yes, WebEx, Zoom. Okay, Google Forms. Yeah, so keep typing. You can have like 3 tools. So roughly, let me check. Yeah, we got 77 participants. So I'm expecting a big word cloud. Okay. Yeah, Teams, Padlet, Kahoot. Yeah, all these are actually audience engagement tools. Padlet, Kahoot, Socrative, Poll Everywhere, the one I'm using now. For free version, you could have 40 responses, but for paid version, you can have unlimited, responses and different types of questions you could pose. Kahoot, WebEx, yes, great. So if I pick Zoom, Moodle, Google, Microsoft Teams, that's coming out of this. Yeah, YouTube is also. That's great. That's great. So let's move on. I'm just sharing, like, when you're designing a content, the first thing you need to come up with, the technical term we use is storyboarding. So what we need to do, subject matter need to sit with instructional designers and brief them that what you want to achieve at the end of the session, what kind of learning outcomes you want to achieve, and how you're going to deliver your content. That's very important. And to whom you are going to deliver. If they don't have internet, then you need to plan accordingly. So storyboarding will make sure that what subject matter thinks, our instructional designer should follow that. And here I just shared on leftmost top corner is, sorry, is Office 365. PowerPoint includes there. Then we have Articulate 360, where we have Storyline, we have Articulate Replay, and there are a few more softwares in. And this is a poll everywhere. Even you could use WordPress, a blog where you could create your content. LinkedIn, another example. Then for communication, what we use, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, instant messaging like WhatsApp, Telegram, Google Classroom. And when it comes to LMS, yeah, so you need to pick up Moodle is open source, Blackboard, Canvas, and there are a few more. Add Moodle also, somebody actually mentioned in the chat. So all these are LMS. So you need to come up with appropriate and accurate blend of these tools to achieve your learning outcomes or objectives, right? And at the end, assessment. So your content assessment and your objectives need to be aligned, right? I always follow Dr. Jane's Hart website. So if you Google Dr. Jane's Hart, every year conduct a survey and list down the top 100 tools used for, teaching and learning, for personal learning, and for workplace-based learning. So let me read from the website. The topmost tool is very hot. It's just on 1st September, just 4 days ago, she released this survey. So the voter, about 2,000 plus votes from 45 countries, and they pick up the way just now I asked you list down your top 3 tools. So similar way, the first tool was YouTube. Okay, so if you, I will name top 10 tools, and if anyone who don't know less than 5 tools, then I think need to be worried and pick and learn these tools. Zoom comes number 2, okay, this year, and then all other collaborative tools also like falls next to Zoom, like Microsoft Teams or even Google Hangouts, uh, right. Google Classrooms, yeah, it comes to number 16. Then live engagement tools, like just now, I use Poll Everywhere, Mentimeter, Quizzes, Socrative. LinkedIn, number 7, okay. Articulate, like Articulate Storyline, Articulate Engage, Articulate Quizmaker is number 9. And number 10, they pick up here Google Lens. So more on image based or augmented reality kind of, AI, artificial intelligence. So these are the 10 tools. So make sure all these 10 tools, being in teaching and learning, we must know at least and start using them, right? Because I have to finish. This another platform I need to share with you is test.com/lesson. So it's a free space provided to us, where you could even a lot of educators share their lesson plans, so you could actually use this space, create your own courses, and it's very easy, drag and drop, and all open educational resources are linked to this platform. So you can create your own short course and start, teaching. And sorry, the QR code is a bit blur. Just to conclude, what we need to do, we need to find appropriate tool to adjust to the learner needs and start design and development of content in a virtual environment. And the last take-home message I would say, designing learning experiences is not that easy. It's a challenging task. And maybe one design may work for a group of learners and same design may not work for another group. So we always need to do need analysis and need to modify and incorporate all different latest tools and features. So I will end my talk here. So feel free if you have any question. Normally this kind of session I conduct full one day where we dive into all these tools, and normally I give tasks to workshop participants where they come in and design and develop content using these tools, and we evaluate. So if you want to know more, this is my blog and the slide share. You will have all the slides about these tools and how you could use them. With this, I will end my talk and we'll take question and answer afterwards because I overrun 1 minute of time. And I would like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Mariam. Are you around?
Yes, I'm available. Hello.
Yes, hello, yeah. Can you share your screen and let me stop my screen? You see, I forget to even turn on my camera. Sorry for that. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Mariam. Yeah.
Let me see.
Yeah, we could see your PDF. Yeah, just make it in a full screen.
Yeah, is it
Yeah,
correct?
perfect, perfect.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Maryam Taif Mahmoudi from ICT Research Institute, Iran. And my expertise is in artificial intelligence. So I'm from the computer science field of study. And in the meantime, I'm the head of education, scientific and international collaboration office of ICT Research Institute. But I'm very interested in using the tools and new emerging technologies in medicine and medical purposes for these purposes. So what I'm going to talk about right now is about XR in medical universe. First of all, I would like to appreciate Dr. Bigdeli and the other colleagues who are providing this webinar, and it's a great pleasure for me to be a part of this team. Thank you so much. And maybe you have this question in mind that what exactly XR means. XR is the abbreviation of extended reality. And it is an emerging umbrella, as you can see in this picture, which has different kinds of immersive technologies like augmented reality, mixed reality, virtual reality under its shadow. And it really includes these technologies that can merge the physical and virtual worlds together. And our colleagues before me also mentioned about the importance and the significance of these tools nowadays. Let's see what is the reality to virtuality. The first time in 1994, Milgram had provided a continuum from a reality to virtuality that, as you can see in this picture, from one direction on the vector, you can see real environment in which it is a space which has no virtual elements, all the things are physical. And on the other side, on the opposite side of the vector, you will see the virtual environment that we call it virtual reality. And it is a space which has no physical elements inside it. But in between, we have mixed reality. Mixed reality, as you can see here, is including augmented reality and augmented virtuality as well. Augmented reality, as you can see in the left picture here, is a space, is a physical space where virtual elements have been integrated on it. For instance, in this picture, you can see the gray ball, which is superimposed on the physical table or physical picture of the table near the cup. But in augmented virtuality, as you can see in the next picture, it is a space which is virtual space, but physical elements are superimposed on that. Just like the picture that you can see here, the table, on the table you have a virtual environment, but the cans which are available on the table are physical and they are real. Let's go more in the details about the augmented reality. In augmented reality, as you can see in the pictures which are available here, the virtual information and objects such as sounds, images, videos, 3D objects are overlaid on the real world that can be seen from different kinds of equipments like mobile, tablets, screens, or other equipments. So it has various and a very wide range of applications in medicine and in other kinds of usages too. As you can see here, for instance, whenever you want to go and buy a watch, it's not needed to go to a shop. You can just go to the website of the watches, and you can also see how the watch is on your hand and then select and buy it. Or whenever you go to a trip, you can easily find the best restaurants, the best hotels, museums, and other places which are very important. Or whenever you want to teach complex terms, especially in medicine, it's very useful to use augmented reality because you can have some complementary information about each of those complex terms or complex subjects that you're going to teach. And also in surgery and other kinds of medical purposes that I'm going to deeply in other slides into those examples. Now we would like to see what the virtual reality is. As we can see in this picture, virtual reality is an interactive computer-generated experience that users are fully immersed in that simulated digital environment. And a person can be a part of that environment because he or she is using mounted some just like the Google glasses or some other headsets which has this potential to have some interaction with the virtual environment that he or she is inside it. And he can be able to move around something, or he can have some interaction with the different pages, as you can see here. Some of them also can be in special rooms or in special rooms with very big screens or large screens. The multiple screens, as you can see in the last picture at the bottom of this page, that a person is going to teach how to drive, or some other applications that we are going through. Besides augmented reality and virtual reality, we have another term that we call it mixed reality. Mixed reality, as you can see here, can provide the coexistence of digital and real world objects together, which can interact with each other, with one another in real time. Mixed reality is the latest immersive technology that is sometimes called hybrid reality too. And it is also have some special headsets, and it really needs more processing power and more powerful and potential than augmented reality and virtual reality. And some of the HoloLens which are available right now are some examples of mixed reality that allows you to place digital objects in the room you're standing in and give you the ability to spin it around or interact with the digital objects in any way which is possible. So it will provide a very good potential for different applications, especially in medicine and in surgery too. So we have various kinds of applications for XR and its consistence terms that I've told you, AR, VR, MR, and the other things. They have various applications in military, as you can see, in education and training. They have very good and significant impact on learning. And there exist a lot of papers which are comparing the performance of learners with or without using these equipments and these tools. Also, it has a very good impact in health and treatment, and nowadays in several universities, in hospitals and clinics, they are using the potential of augmented reality, virtual reality, and other things. Also, it is very good for entertainment, in fashion, in cultural heritage and tourism, as I've mentioned before. Also for business and retails, in industry and engineering, in sports and in advertisement. So you can see there are several applications that are making use of these tools and medias. Also, it has a very good impact in construction and architecture, in filmmaking, and also in game making. So we, till here, we've got familiar with the terms XR and its consistence, and also the applications of AR, VR, MR, and XR. Now we would like to talk more about the role of XR in medical universe. As I've mentioned before, the most significant role that XR has is in education. As you know, whenever you want to teach a very complex subject or area, it's very important to give tangible and understandable information to the students. XR in general can provide this opportunity for the trainers and for the teachers to teach the complex features and complex concepts, especially in medicine. As you can see in the top picture, there are some special headsets with HoloLens that you can separate different parts of the body and teach each of these parts to the medical students or related students to this subject. Or whenever you want to teach these concepts to some students in schools, also with augmented reality, you can give some extra information in form of text, in form of animation, sound, or 3D objects that can complement your explanation. So it has a very, very significant role in improving the performance of learning in learners. Another usage of XR in medical universe is with respect to diagnosis. As you can see in these two pictures, it has very good role because it can also provide some extra information and wide sight for the surgeon or for the to give some more information about the radiography or scans or the experimentations that they had. So it can help the doctors for having a very good diagnosis on the symptoms and tumors and other problems that a patient may face too. The other example goes back and refers to treatment. As you can see, and as in these years, it is widely used, augmented reality and virtual reality, especially virtual reality, has a very good impact on phobia treatment. For instance, we had a project with one of my students about the acrophobia, and we made and simulate an environment for those who are suffering from the acrophobia. They could go through that simulation, and they could go on the top of a very a building, and in this way he could have some treatment that after some times and after using this system for several times, he could just overcome this problem. Nowadays, it has a very good role in treatment of especially phobia and other kinds of problems. Another use of XR is in occupational therapy, especially in these days that we are facing the COVID-19, that many people and persons, especially with disabilities, are unavailable to go to hospitals or the clinics or physiotherapy. This opportunity is very good for them because they can use the tools and applications which are available on internet, and they can use it at home. And most of them are designed in a way that they are just playing a game. So it is more interesting for them to play a game, but with these playing the game, they are actually have some experiences on their occupational therapy. So it can help a lot all the persons with disabilities, and also those who are suffering from different pains in their muscles, or they have problems in their hands and other kinds of other parts of their body. So if I would like to summarize the applications, I can say that all these kinds of XR, AR, VR, MR can be easily used and very useful for industry, for dentistry, for medicine, for nursing, in surgery, for surgery simulation, for real different kinds of therapies for phobia treatment. Also, it's very useful for PTSDs, for autism, because it makes some awareness for those who are suffering from the autism, different kinds of health issues, and also for persons with disabilities. So for the healthcare, if we consider the significance of XR, we can give that the use cases which are benefited by that. For instance, for diagnosis and planning, or for training in surgery, dentistry, simulation, as I told you, or for treatment, different kinds of depressions and PTSD, autism, phobia, pain management, addictions, telemedicine. They all can use XR very good in their activities. Also for rehabilitation and occupational therapy that I've told you, for instance, for those who are suffering from a stroke or dementia, etc., it's very useful. Thank you for your attention. At the end, I would like to show you a very short film, which may be very interesting for you. Let me just share. Can you see that?
Yes. No. we can't see. You need to share different screen.
Used in a variety of fields such as robotics, computer vision.
Dr. Mariam, can you hear me?
I am an artificial intelligence.
Yes, please.
We can't see. We are still seeing your PowerPoint or PDF. So you need to reshare your screen again.
Okay, let me see. Can you see it right now?
Yes, now we could see. Great.
The combination of AI with augmented reality and mixed reality can provide an extensive application in biotechnology. Furthermore, it will enable an interaction of digital with the physical environment in a multi-dimensional way that will help prevent, manage, and cure billions of people. Startup Insights has analysed the geographic distribution of global activity in AR in healthcare and identified 25 regional hubs that observe increased activity in developing AR solutions in healthcare. Powerful tools are being developed with potential to redefine disease detection, diagnosis, and treatment. Detecting cancer through image recognition can help doctors in their patients' diagnosis. With real-time screening analysis, they are just as accurate as those performed by trained professionals. For example, an AR microscope with real-time AI integration for cancer diagnosis overlays AI-based information onto the current view of the sample in real time. SentiAR, a US-based medical device startup, has been awarded $2.2 million from the National Institutes of Health to advance augmented reality device for cardiologists. Their AI-based AR device can provide real-time holographic visualization of the patient's actual anatomy to surgeons, which they can use during simple or complex surgical procedures. The AR headset overlays specific information floating over the patient. Using the Senti AR device, surgeons are able to visualize bones, muscles, and internal organs without even having to cut open a body. Insight Medical Systems is another US company that provides bionic vision for surgeons. Their focus is on developing an augmented reality visualization and information system that utilizes computer-assisted surgery in orthopedic procedures, including joint replacement, ACL reconstruction, and spinal fusion. The World Health Organization estimates that by 2035, there will be an approximate 12.9 million shortage of health professionals, and it is partly attributed to shortcomings in the execution, access, and quality of health professionals' education. The issue is already being addressed by many companies. Viati, a company based in California, develops and distributes immersive education for healthcare. To accelerate the employee medical training, they employ a combination of VR and AR with AI. Viati uses research into cognitive decision-making under pressure and an immersive video platform combined with augmented reality to help professionals prepare for real-life, high-pressure environments, including surgery, sports, emergency response, and military training. Many companies in Europe have also seen an increase in AR tech development. Backup Reality, the UK-based startup in London, developed an AR app named Dorothy, the first AR assistant for people with memory problems. Dorothy reminds them of their daily tasks, guides around the house using AR, and keeps them connected with their caregiver. Several challenges lie ahead for the large-scale adoption of AR technologies in healthcare. Nevertheless, new approaches will emerge to overcome these obstacles. The applications of these technologies will continue to expand and provide improved visualization, which we are ready to exploit. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? Then show your support by subscribing, ringing the bell, and enabling notifications to never miss videos like this.
Well, thank you very much. And I think I really hope that you enjoy it. As you have seen in the film also, the combination of artificial intelligence together with XR, AR, VR, and MR can provide this potential for everybody to enhance all the aspects and applications that I've mentioned before. Thank you very much. If there is any question, I'm at your service.
Thanks, Dr. Mariam. Actually, somebody asked us if you could share the link of the video you just now showed, and that would be great in the chat. And thanks for very great insight about all this different augmented reality and mixed reality and virtual reality. So let me take this opportunity to invite Dr. Suleiman Yildiz from, he'll be talking on technologies and e-patients. So over to Dr. Suleiman. Yes, please introduce yourself and start your talk.
Thank you so much, Doctor. So much. My name is Süleyman. I am from Mardin, Turkey, and I was the executive committee member of the AMI last 4 years. And right now I'm a pediatrician in a hospital, and I'm working in the hematology department. Today we will talk about it. Let's first let us share my screen, please. Okay. Yeah, here. Do you see my presentation right now?
Yes, yes, Dr. So just, it's already in full screen. Great.
Yeah. Today we are going to talk about the technology and patients. New term has come together, patients. And we will talk about the healthcare profession should be aware of these new tools they use. Let's start about what is the e-patient. Over the past few years, a term associated with the seemingly new type of patient, the e-patient, has emerged in various medical journals, websites, and social media. While it is tempting to dismiss the concept as passing fad, indications are that the e-patient will have a dramatic impact on healthcare. In order for this impact to be positive, it is crucial for medical educators to be aware of the nature and tools of the e-patients which they use regularly. When we look at the description of the e-patient, the Keymaster and the Ferguson with their friends, they described the e-patient that A patient who looks for medical information on the internet and makes decision based upon the information. On the other hand, in the other words on to Tom Ferguson, who coined the term, the e-patient is equipped, enabled, empowered, and engaged in their health and healthcare decisions. This is the one of the last description as well about the e-patient. Studies about the studies of patient use of the internet for health-related information show that such usage is as high as 60 or 18% according to the studies. In addition to that, many patients have access to the internet by proxy as 20 or around 40% of this e-patient search the internet for health-related information on behalf of the other patients, sometimes as friends and family, sometimes as caregivers. In addition to that, many patients also aware of that the situation is alerting use the reality that all patients are potential e-patients. What is the typical activities of the e-patients? When we look at these activities, e-patients conduct a wide variety of the online activities, including searching for medical information in reportable journals, even some of them are even paywalled, searching in less reportable and commercial sites, responding to the direct-to-consumer advertising, connect to the other patients in online communities for emotional support and medical information, maintaining their own electronic personal health records, developing and using mobile health applications and devices, communicating with their physicians through the email and video conference tool like Skype, Zoom, checking their doctor's digital footprints, rating their doctors, sharing their medical data with the third parties, and where possible, accessing their electronic medical records. And when we are looking to the tools, main tools, the e-patients are using, most of them are the non-payable, they are free. The Headspace, Medscape, My Health Finder, ZocDoc, I'm Well, CareConnect, and WebMD are the most useful and the mainly used tools that the e-patients are using currently. So what is their motivation? Motivations behind the e-patients seeking for information online includes that the fact that they sometimes receive better information from the internet than from their doctors. It is convenient and cheaper, more private and less embarrassing, contributes to their treatment and improves to the patient-doctor relationship. And what is the implications? What are the implications for healthcare? The most striking implication for healthcare is the impact on the patient-doctor relationship. There is little dispute that the the good patient and doctor communication is essential to the good healthcare. The type of information communicated has been strictly determined by each person's role. Doctor communicates medical information and the patient communicates information about their health, lifestyle, and the personal preferences. The largest change brought to by the e-patient is that patient now has medical information from elsewhere and wishes to communicate and act upon that information. Within the context of the workplace interaction between the patient and doctor, an understanding of the Angstrom's activity system model, which is used the last 10 years, leads us to realize that the e-patient now has knowledge and ownership of important medical tools. Most e-patient advocates, however, stress that the idea is not for the e-patient to replace the doctor, but for the e-patient to work as a partner to the doctor. When we look at the problem caused by e-patient activities, given the e-patients, I can say that although a better information, informed patient is to be welcomed for most of the doctors, there are problems associated with the e-patient activities. For example, given the e-patient's possible relative lack of the medical expertise compared to the doctor, medical information might be misunderstood, incorrect, outdated, or inappropriate to specific circumstances. Many patients have reported that they have felt overwhelmed, frightened, and confused by the information they have found on the internet especially. And patients may be influenced by commercial sites and might suffer from trust issues and face abused online medical forms. For example, when they are looking at the headaches, they can see the brain tumor on the first site. Furthermore, in the context of the electronic medical records, laws and rules generally lag behind the practicalities, and issues like real ownership, final decisions on amendments, patient responsibilities, minor accesses, mental health records, and the patient's use of the information out of the context still need to be resolved. And what is the doctor response to the e-patient? While the idea of the more engaged patient seeing the information in order to ask the more informed question might be well covered by some doctors. E-patients may be classified as problematic patients who cause an unwelcome distribution to the normal flow of the work. And we believe that most of the doctors, according to the study, we see that they are labeled as the problematic patients. And medical information stemming from the patient's research has been dismissed as the patients are told, stop Googling, leading to tragic consequences, primarily as a result of the negative physician attitudes. Some 65 and 80% of the patients who seek the medical information on the internet do not tell their doctors. One can only speculate as to the negative impact on healthcare if a patient has found information he believes to be correct and then receive contradictory information from his doctor, and fear of appearing challenging or overly involved prevents the meaningful discussion between the patient and the doctor. Teaching medical students about the e-patient. Working constructively with e-patient is a skill that, like all skills, needs to be taught and learned. While being with patient respect is a good start, it's not enough. Alternatively, simply referring to patients to the doctor Google is of little value. As the 21st century medical curriculum needs to be addresses the teaching of the skills, and there are indications that the medical students are already aware of the e-patients and are ready to learn. While teaching methods will vary among the medical students, there are basic elements that will need to be taught to future doctors. When we come to the conclusion, the world has changed from a time when doctors kept their medication information secret as a part of their oath. While many doctors may currently feel uneasy about e-patient activities, the e-patient is here and all around the world, and the characteristics and the behaviors of the e-patient will become more prevalent. This is like the progress at such speed that soon the e-patient will be norm, and the term like e-patient will fall away as the characteristics and the behaviors become the standards for all the patients. We don't know what the health environment will be like in 10 years, but it is obvious it will change dramatically, and the doctors need to be trained to work with this new environment so that the patient-doctor relationship with the technology and to continue to be one of the encourages good health care. Especially we need to know which tools they are using basically and which kind of the information they are benefiting from that. Current medical education doesn't prepare health professions to deal with all these complexities, and relying on old approaches and attitudes may not work. The e-patient with us and present a set of complex interaction never before experienced by health professions. I want to say thank you so much for invitation for Dr. Brigdaly and for our dear moderator, Dr. Zafer. This is the end of the presentation. If you have question, I will be ready to type the answers or answer from here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Sulaiman. It was a great presentation. We will take questions at the end, and I would like to invite the last speaker, but not the least, of course, is Professor John. He will be talking on the challenge of research and scholarship for technology-enhanced learning. Prof. John, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I mean, it's a great honour to be invited again to talk on this series of seminars. So thank you very much. And it's great to be able to share our thoughts and experiences across the world. So thank you very much indeed. So What I'm going to talk about is the challenge of research and scholarship for technology-enhanced learning. There's a concept called useful knowledge, and this is knowledge that's required by decision makers to help them to make a decision on what to do. This isn't necessarily the scientific knowledge that we publish in magazines, because it's making sense of what do we do in our own context, our own situation. And we're all decision makers. Some of us are educators, some of us will be administrators. So we're having to make decisions all the time on what we do about the way that we provide medical education. But we want useful information to help us to decide, should we use this particular technology? Shouldn't we use this technology? How should we design it? How should we integrate it? And for me, useful knowledge has three components. For knowledge to be useful, we have to create knowledge, and that is through research. We also need to disseminate that useful knowledge to others, and for me, that is the hallmark of scholarship. And we also need to be able to apply any useful knowledge across to other contexts. So what is useful for you in one situation, is it useful in another situation? So let's look at some of the dilemmas with the using technology for research. What are the implications for research? Well, first of all, technology, using it for education, is actually complicated. And I think we've already come across here quite a lot of issues from our previous speakers. We've talked about the need to craft the learning experience, the particular context, the skills of the learners, the skills of the educators, but also the institutions in which we work, but also the society in which we live. There's a need to do research in what I call real life contexts. And for me, a real life context is where you're doing research and it is not isolated into a laboratory. It's very easy to use some latest technology in a very selected group of learners with high number of technologists to give you support, with excellent Wi-Fi connectivity, the technicians around in case anything goes wrong with the system. The problem is that many of us do not live in such a world where we have that luxury. We have internet connections which suddenly go down. Sometimes we can't get the machinery to work. All these are really important. We also need to be able to identify not just the perceptions, but also the processes and the products. And I'll come back to that in a minute. And I also feel that one of the important challenges is about having rapid and iterative research methods, especially during times of rapid change. And one of them at the moment is obviously the COVID-19 pandemic. Because what happens is that by the time we've planned a research project, we've done it, we've written it up, we get it published, it can be what, a year, 2 years? Well, the technology is out of date then, things have moved on. So we need some quicker way of doing rapid iterative research. Now, we talked about earlier about how complicated technology enhanced learning is. And one of the speakers earlier, Hussein, talked about the importance of aligning several factors to get good learning using technology. We need to consider the learner, the content, the instructional approach, the technology to deliver it, and the context. All of these have to be in alignment. And if they're not in alignment, technology is unlikely to work. So there isn't one perfect technology for teaching or learning. There's not one at all, and there never will be. It depends on the learners, on the content, the instructional approach, the technology, and the context. And our skill as medical educators is to make sure that these are aligned, and that is a real skill. But without it, technology will not be effective. We need to particularly consider the context. The barriers to using technology. I recently wrote with an article which was in Medical Teacher with colleagues from Brazil, where we were looking at evidence-based practice. It sounds good, but what happens when you try and apply it in low resource settings with a different context? And for me, one of the big barriers to using technology anywhere in the world, even in high resource settings, is internet connectivity. It can suddenly go down. There's the amount of width on the broadband. If you want to connect multiple users or use sophisticated technology, there are large demands on the technology and the internet. But also we need to consider digital competencies for staff and students, and I'll come back to that later. We also need to consider the technology, the finance, and the support of these resources. We saw earlier about how virtual reality can really, really transform medical education. And there isn't a day goes by where I'm not approached, by companies trying to induce my medical school to buy the latest equipment. It is incredibly expensive. And we have to think of that, the resource implications, but also we have to think of the technology support. And also we need an organization that has leadership, that has vision, and the willingness and readiness to change. And I'm going to reiterate this. For evidence-based practice, which many of us aspire to, including in medical education, it needs to come from experiments in real life contexts, because these are complex. What I recommend, and I'm a huge fan of, is educational design research, which are rapid cycles of using research to implement a change. So there is implementation and research at the same time. And as you can see, it begins with a collaboration between the researcher and potential users, all the stakeholders. These are the learners, these are the educators, these are the technologists, these are the administrators, these are all the stakeholders. So what is the problem we really want to address about why we want to use technology? Is it just because it's the latest toy? No, it's because we have a learning challenge that we want to address. So we then develop a solution. We use best design principles, and we collaborate using that, multi-professional teams. And then we test and refine through numerous iterative cycles. And within each of these cycles, we can reflect and get new insights into the design and implementation, which then goes back into reanalyzing the problem, developing new solution, and go back into these iterative cycles of test and refine. And for me, this is research, just like doing a randomized controlled trial. And the medical education paradigm very rarely uses educational design research, yet it's widely used in computers, it's widely used in other areas of education. So compared with other types of empirical research, what's the difference? Number one is about collaboration, particularly between the researchers and the participants. The other one is that it is context rich. It's in one particular institution. It doesn't claim to be generalizable, but it can actually provide high validity because it focuses on the useful knowledge which we all want to know if we want to put it into practice. It's iterative with rapid cycles. I mean, for example, in usability testing, the research has shown that 85% of problems using technology can be identified with only 12 users. So that's all you might need to do to see what the difficulties are going to be. And then the great aspect is that it's a reflective approach. Is it working? Why is it not working? Do we need to do something differently? And this process of rapid cycles of testing, implementation, and reflection help us to be able to make sure that the technology and all the other factors are appropriately aligned. So what are we going to be measuring? Well, often the main perception is usefulness. What do the users think about it? But an important aspect, which is equally as important, is the usability. How easy was it to use? The processes are important. How was the intervention actually used by the users? What was available? And I'm not going to go through it now, but some of the courses I've run on research in using technology, you show people the abstract, and it's fantastic. We gave these tablets, students learned much faster, but it doesn't tell you the fact that the students were given free tablet devices. They had free internet access. They had support. They had mentoring. They had a help desk. Now, that was part of the research. But the difficulty is that if you then try and transfer it somewhere else, you're immediately faced with, well, do I actually have free internet access all the time for these students? Can I afford to give them the devices? Do we have the infrastructure to provide mentoring and support? Do we have the technology help desk support? Often the perceptions, the usefulness are measured, and often the products are measured. What is the impact on learning? But often impact on behavior. What do they actually do differently? And their actual practice is less really measured. And I suggest that good quality research, including educational design research, requires all these factors. Because usefulness and usability and how the intervention is used is essential if research is to be applied to another context. So for high quality design-based research, we need to understand the context, the perceptions and the processes, but also we need to use high quality research methods. And one of the aspects about design-based research where it has been regarded as not being as good as empirical research is because of the quality of data collection, data analysis. So the next aspect is disseminating this research. And for me, that is what scholarship is. It's about opening our work up to others, to help others to recognize that we have contributed to the wider body of knowledge. Now, the problem is traditional publication routes, like medical education journals, are too slow. They have word limits. What can you write in 1,500 words or even 2,000 words? They may take a review process, then the review process goes into pre-publication, then it gets published, then it gets disseminated. There are style restrictions. It tends to be written in a typical scientific way. So all this makes useful knowledge difficult to find and difficult to disseminate. And increasingly, if we're going to have rapid dissemination and particularly useful knowledge, we need to turn to social media, but also to MedEd Publish, which has reviews after publication. However, there are huge implications for this because there are implications for recognition, for promotion, and for tenure. People do not recognize these Although for social media, there are measures such as using altmetrics, and there are scales where in fact the quality of a social media presentation or the information put on social media can be graded. And this has been done in some of the A&E work. Now, finally, is if we're going to have information to be applied to another context, we need to consider applicability, transferability, and sustainability. And these are the questions, once we've got the information, we need to understand to make our decisions. So it's from one person to numerous people. So is the research findings got high applicability? Could that process be actually implemented in another setting? That is a key question to be asking yourself. Can these findings be implemented in another setting? This is a process of doing that intervention. Because if you can't, you may never, ever get the potential benefit. And it's interesting, you know, we were looking at virtual reality. It's absolutely fantastic, but you need all that infrastructure, particularly the financial resources. So in an area with low resources, if you're going to go through that, you may not actually be able to achieve the same potential because of the processes related to the context. Which then also links into transferability, the extent to which the measured effectiveness could be achieved in another setting. One of the important aspects of using technology is scalability. Can it cope with handling a growing amount of work in a capable manner? And one of the difficulties is the fact that once we get into disseminating these types of interventions, can it reach its potential across a larger area? For example, the internet connection in many teaching and most teaching hospitals is going to be excellent, but the further you get away from that teaching hospital into the local district hospitals, the less it is likely to be effective, because there may be difficulties related to internet connection, technological support, but also the educators to support that. There's also generation scalability. It might be okay for the new net generation, the millennium generation, but will it work for people of my age and people in the 50s and 60s where they're not used to using this type of tool? Does it have administrative scalability? Can it deal with numerous logins, numerous help desk queries? Because without that, many of these systems are likely to fail. And the other aspect is the technology itself. It's okay with a small number, but as more and more and more and more people use it, the actual software, the servers may not be able to cope, and it just crashes. And this happens to everybody. We hear of, you know, sites where we want to buy something and the whole site crashes down because so many people have been trying to buy the same product at the same time. So I hope I've given you some food for thought. If you would like to have a look, there are 2 open access publications there. One was how to make it work, a framework for rapid research to inform evidence-based decision-making. So you may find that useful, and that's in MedEd Publish. And another one was about the challenge of online learning for medical education during the COVID-19 pandemic, which is in the International Journal of Medical Education. So thank you very much, and I'm delighted to accept any questions.
Thank you, Prof. It was really a great talk and insight how we could do the research. Just to randomly pick one of the questions asked by Dr. Khwaja Shahid Rafi, to use this technology is going to alter the human behavior of the user in some way. So this is a dangerous area to fish in medical practice. So what do you say?
My grandfather said to my father in the 1920s that he was looking up at the moon and he said, nobody will ever go to the moon. That's what he said to my father in the 1920s. That's what we say about technology. It will never go, it's not going to go away. You know, technology is a pervasive part of our life. And there's so much money tied up in technology that technology is going to continue. And human behavior will have to evolve with the technology. And it's already doing that now. People are constantly on their phones. But that is only one aspect of it. That's the social aspects of it. And I think with time, what we will find is that it's going into education now. It's gradually getting into medical education. It's going to be what we call pervasive, ubiquitous. And I don't think we can separate in the future society, the way we live, the way we work with technology. It's going to have to be a symbiosis.
Okay, great. I think let me somebody from the attendees want to ask question. Shifa, could you unmute? I think his name is Abdul Rashid. Dr.
Sure.
Abdul Rashid. Yeah, thanks.
Am I heard?
Yes.
Hello.
Loud and clear.
Okay. Professor Sanders, thank you very much for your informative, organized and clear presentation. Really enjoyed that. But there's a question for me. You talked about the useful knowledge that should be created through research, and that is clear enough to everyone, I believe. And my question is that, don't you think that there should be something like a established leadership to decide which sorts of knowledge, which kind of knowledge is useful and the other is not? Because in the case of COVID-19, you saw that there were different kinds, even contradicting ideas by experts. For example, in one country, they produced a vaccine and they announced that the vaccine was produced, but in another part of the world, they denied the procedure and they said that was not scientific or something. So what do you think? How can we decide that which kind of knowledge is through organized research and which one is not?
Yeah, I think you've hit upon a fantastic question. I think that question probably hits not just using technology, but the whole of medicine. At the end of the day, why does somebody come to see a doctor? They can look at the information on the internet and we can provide information through research. But the reason why people come to see a doctor is that the doctor provides judgment. And if we look at evidence-based practice, the original definition of it by David Sackett was it was the judicious use of the best evidence, the best information we have, with the experience of the doctor combined with the wishes of the patient. And I think what we need to do is to, as you're quite rightly said, there isn't going to be the right answer or the wrong answer. The answer, the information is always going to be variable. Even in a systematic review, you will find differences. Very rarely do you see one trial, all the trials showing one particular benefit. There's usually some degree of heterogeneity, there's a dispersion. And at the end of the day, a judgment has to be made. And I think what we need more of, and which we don't have, are actually panel discussions between experts where actually both sides are rapidly discussed at points in time. So what we're doing is almost like drawing a line across, saying this is the information now on the, you know, on the 6th of September. This is what we know. This is what this is the variation. Experts talk about it and say, was it, you know, discuss their opinions, but not say something is right or wrong necessarily. And then they need to be doing it repeatedly. Probably if something is evolving rapidly, it needs to be done every couple of months, maybe every 6 weeks. And for me, there isn't time to be doing full systematic reviews. It's doing what's called rapid reviews, where you're quickly looking at what is out there. I mean, obviously, a study of looking at 4 people in technology, people are going to say, well, this is rubbish. But if it's about 20 or 30 in a particular context, but again, we need to understand the context where it was done, the resources, all these factors about it. And this is where you get a discussion. So for me, it's a much more democratic process. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I hope so. I think thanks, Prof. There's another question, which is like when you were showing different roles, you know, like in instructional design, technologists, and then subject matter experts. So the question came up, it seems impossible for one person to do all this. So that is to master own subject, then to master technology, which is by no means that simple, you know. So what would be your advice? And same question I would be asking to other facilitators or presenters also. Yes, please, Prof. John first.
Okay, thank you. Well, for me, it's just like trying to provide healthcare. You wouldn't, the more complex you want to do something, the more you actually need the skills of other people. So making a simple diagnosis or doing a simple procedure like taking a sample of blood, you don't need many people. But as soon as you want to be doing a heart transplant, you need a whole team of people. And for me, the same is about technology. You know, if you're going to be doing simple technology, you can do it by yourself, a simple educator. But the more you want to get involved, both implementing it and researching it, what we need is much greater involvement of a whole range of people with a range of different skills.
Right.
So
Thanks.
I think that's my summary of it.
Okay. So can I ask Dr. Denat, are you around? Could you unmute yourself, and you want me to repeat the question? So it seems impossible for one person. Yeah.
No, I don't think it's possible for one person to do all things, because let me answer this question in relation to my own presentation, which was about new generation of universities, which requires not only interdisciplinary, but transdisciplinary approach. Okay, so it's not possible to do it with one person, if I understand your question correctly.
Okay. And another question relates to you, like, can we name these radical changes which you were mentioning as a shift paradigm in e-learning?
Name some of those radical changes. Should I just name these radical changes?
I'm not sure. I think you were, it may be referring to COVID-19 or other changes, you know.
Well, the radical, yeah, I don't know if it's related to my presentation. There's radical changes. I could name the webinars. You know that in the past we had conferences, which are replaced by these virtual seminars, webinars, or we see virtual labs, online labs actualized by a simulation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That's good. That's good. And there was a question for Dr. Suleiman. He was asking, like most of the patients, when they come and Google, so is this called like e-patients? Like when they're coming to visit your clinic, they Google before the disease and all that. So what do you think? And what's your advice, Dr. Suleiman? Please unmute yourself. Dr. Suleiman seems like not around. It's okay. Anybody, any other question, please raise your hand and we can unmute you, or use your Q&A chat and post your question and we'll be answering. We can take one or two questions more. And before that, I could actually invite Prof. John to summarize overall. We can take 1 to 2 questions. Okay, there was a question, I don't know whether it's appropriate to answer here. Somebody asked, like, where can we find a program, master's or PhD, for artificial intelligence, especially designed for medical sciences? So I don't know if anyone wants to promote. Yes, Prof. John, I think you were nodding a bit, like difficult to find.
I don't know a specific one at all, I'm afraid. I think it depends on what you want to do. There is the technology aspect of it, but you don't need to know how a car engine works, yes, which is computer science, to do the education. If it's about crafting the experience and using it, I honestly don't know of a specific course. I think it's about trying to work with people who are actually using that technology. I mean, we've been doing some work using mixed reality, using an immersive 360-degree environment with anaesthetists, but it's about working with computer people as well, and working with them. And we've just published some work in BMJ, simulation and technology, enhanced learning about it. And, you know, it's all part of the learning curve. You know, do you actually get immersion? Does it matter? Things like, what's the level of fidelity of the images you need around the outside, never mind the simulation. And all those aspects were really important. What's missing? And the only way you can do it is really start engaging with people who are doing the work. And for me, if you're interested in doing it, just get involved in doing it. Ask around if you know of anybody. If you haven't got anybody in your own country, ask around if somebody else is doing work. There are forums for medical educators, such as AME.
Yeah. Just to add on, like, yeah.
May I add
Anyone?
something, Professor
Yes, sure,
Saunders? Sure. May I add something?
Go ahead.
Okay. I do agree with Professor Saunders also on answering this question. And I really recommend those who are interested in doing some interdisciplinary works like this, it's better to have to define some thesis in collaboration with the medical schools, with computer science schools or artificial intelligence schools. I mean that if the issue or subject of thesis is something in between, so it's better to have at least two supervise, one from medical school and one from computer science school. Then that student, by defining very in detail, he can do a very good job and a very good research work at his thesis.
Yeah. I mean, good. I totally, yes, Prof. You want to add something?
Sorry, I was just going to say that I think we have to remember, and it echoes what Mariam was saying, the challenge, what the computer scientists are interested in is the computer challenge. They're not interested in the educational challenge. So for them, for something like virtual reality, they're interested in to what extent can you create the sense of immersion in a virtual environment? But what we're interested in is whether it improves the learning. So it's about getting that symbiosis and actually doing research which answers both the needs of both people. So actually both people can publish, because to be quite truthful, often the computer scientists don't want to be publishing in medical education journals, and we certainly wouldn't want to be publishing as medical educationalists in a computer journal which medical educationalists wouldn't be reading.
Yeah, very right. I mean, I can't agree more what you people are saying. Just to share my own personal experience, I am a module coordinator at one of the module for medical health profession education. My background is computer science. I'm managing e-learning department at IMU. So whenever I'm facilitating that module, I always bring in educationists with me to complement me, because my background or my context is more technology or technical. To just publicize in advance, at my university, International Medical University, we are in a design phase of health analytical program where we use artificial intelligence and machine learning. So as Prof. John was saying, like, we are still debating whether it move it to more technical or move it to more, healthcare or education side. So there's one question asked by Abdul Rashid. I am going to allow you to talk. Oh, sorry. Yeah. The question is to Dr. Suleiman.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor, for giving me another opportunity. I'm going to thank Dr. Suleiman for his presentation. He said he's a pediatrician, I think. And I infer that his worry is that e-patient is a big challenge to medicine today. And as you see, this Dr. Google's popularity is becoming bigger and bigger day by day. So do you think, Dr. Suleiman, this is such a big challenge that the medical context should make something like international decisions or whatever kind of decision that can help people all around the world, so that they do not easily get to the Google and do not find a treatment for their problems and illnesses? I don't know whether Dr. Suleiman heard my voice.
I could see Dr. Suleiman.
Yes, I'm hearing right now. Sorry, I has the problem about that. Can I take the question again, please? Because I heard your last sentence. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, yes, Dr. Suleiman, I understand from your presentation that e-patient today is big challenge to medicine. So my question is that, are there any solutions to this to remove this problem from the context of medicine? Because this Dr. Google is available to everyone everywhere, and its popularity is becoming bigger and bigger day by day. So for you as a medical doctor, what do you suggest for people, ordinary people, to make benefits from the Google, but do not to misuse it?
Yeah, thank you so much. It is a nice question. As I said, the e-patient term, as we term it, the e-patient is with us and present a set of the complex interaction never before experienced by any health professionals. These issues came from the last 20 years, and current medical education does not prepare health professionals to deal with all of these complexities, and still relying on old approaches and attitudes may not will work again. So I believe that especially young doctors in medical faculties should be aware of this issue, because we cannot restrict the patient's knowledge or they try to get the information on the internet. We cannot restrict it. As I said, sometimes they have the headaches and they are looking on the Dr. Gago, and it says that you have the brain tumor. And when they approach to you, you have difficulties to change their mind and give them proper information. So the main point is to make ready medical student on this issue because we are, as specialists, still have the lack of the experiences and information to this e-patient. I believe that in next 5 years, there will be some guideline to make ready current doctors and the future doctors. How can we handle this these e-patients, and how can we manage the situation and convince them to the real information, the exact information when they apply to the hospital. But as I said, currently, we don't have any algorithms, or we don't have any real experience that works, and we can say that this is the solution.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Suleiman. I think we run out of time. There are a lot of other questions. So I would like to invite Prof. John to summarize all. Yeah, just unmute yourself. Yes, please.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks,
so,
thanks.
I mean, it's been a fantastic range of different presentations, and it's always, and I'd like to thank all the speakers for their excellent presentations and the questions from the audience as well, which have been insightful. What I'd like to do is to try and draw some themes together, which seem to be common across all the presentations. Number one, I think, is that and I'm sure we're all aware, but we may not be fully aware, that the way that we live, the way that we learn, and our use of technology is actually closely interwoven. You know, it's this symbiotic relationship, and actually, increasingly, we can't separate it. It's not that we've got technology. Technology is part of the way we live, the way that we have leisure life, and the way that we begin to learn. We've got a rapid changing society. There's numerous demands on society. There's demands from patients, there's demand for healthcare, there's the demands of the university, there's demands to train doctors quickly, and to scale the healthcare force. There's the demands of the university to actually have cost effectiveness, and so society. But also, we've got demands from medical education as well. And with all these are major things that we need to consider, but also that technology is rapidly changing. It's rapidly evolving now. You know, the days of having something as a tablet device, that is e-learning, or a PowerPoint, is no longer there. What we're getting into, as we've heard about, there's an increasing amount of emphasis on extended reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning. And this is going to transform it. The way that we live, you know, driverless cars, for example, that's going to happen, undoubtedly. Maybe even, you know, maybe even pilotless aircraft eventually. Now, we're also going to get that increasingly healthcare is going to be going to have increasing use of these technologies as well. But also with machine learning, we're going to be able to find that we can personalize learning, but we get large amounts about how learners are learning using learning analytics. And already there's research which is going on in technology, which looks at the curves, the learning curves, and the decay curves for learning, which are all using large amounts of technology and artificial intelligence. So, as medical educators of the future, how do we actually respond to this? We can be ostriches and put a head in the sand, but also I think we've got insights at the moment to think about the future. Now's the time to be thinking. Number one, we need to have new skills as medical educators. And one is to actually be able to get crafting of the learning experience. We've already talked about, if we can, have a transdisciplinary approach. Transdisciplinary approaches are where we get a group of people together and each person has their own expertise. So we build on that. also, it's about aligning all those factors that we talked about before: the learner, the content, the instructional design, the context, the technology. But also what we're going to need to develop, both as for doctors, educators, and for our students, are actually a new range of digital competencies. One of them is going to be consulting in a digital world. Call it e-health, telehealth, whatever we want, virtual consultations. But digital consultations, I think, are going to stay. In America, it's certainly taken off because it's more cost effective for the system. It certainly seems to be taking off in the UK now. You know, there were long appointments to see a doctor, but now the doctors are phoning back within half an hour. So you can actually have a telephone consultation and asking patients to submit images. But what does all this mean with learning analytics as well? It means that we've got to have a new type of digital ethicism. We've got to be thinking about the ethical aspects of what we're doing, not just for us, not just for patients, but also for students and for teachers, our colleagues, because whether we like it or not, every second of every day, learners can be under surveillance. We know how often they log on, how long they log on for, what they're looking at, institutional systems, using virtual systems, how they've worked through these programs. So we've got a lot of opportunities, but we've got a lot of ethical aspects, and I don't think they've really been addressed. So that may be a key point. And finally, as educators, we need to have, and I'm a passionate believer in this, we need to have research and scholarship, but we need research and scholarship which is fit for purpose. Of course, we need research which is the randomized controlled trials, systematic reviews. We need to continue with that. But what we do need to do is to give much more contextual information so that we can transfer our research findings into the wider world very rapidly. And we need new approaches for doing the research using rapid and iterative methods. I hope you found that summary interesting. I think it's been a fascinating day. Probably the good thing about the day is that it raises more questions than we started with at the beginning. We've learned a lot, but there's a lot to learn in the future and a lot to grapple with. But that is why we've become medical educators, not because it's easy, but because it's interesting and it's a challenge. And it's great to have a community of fellow educators in this world who've got a similar passion, but are faced with similar dilemmas. So it's been a great privilege to take part. I'd like to thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Prof. I think Prof. Shebi, do you want to say something? Because I saw your raised hand. Kindly unmute yourself, Prof. Shebi. If not, can I invite Ms. Shifa to announce and conclude the session? Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Hasnan, and as well as Dr. Afsaneh and Dr. Mariam, Dr. Suleiman, and Professor John Sanders. Thank you so much for your time today and your expertise. We can't thank you enough for bringing your expertise to our panel today. I'd just like to also invite everybody back again in 2 weeks for another session of our international workshops and webinars in medical education. This session will be held on September 19th at the same time, 11 o'clock GMT, by Professor Judy McKim, entitled, "What Does Social Accountability Mean to Health Professionals and Organizations?" So please look out for that registration. So again, thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Just to inform, the recording of all the sessions, you could access the link shared by Ms. Shifa in the chat, right? sivu.alsadekuni.com. Thanks. So let's see Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.